Yes, it is average mics, guys. Today is, I don't even know what today is. I really don't even know what today is. I know today is Monday. It's my day off. Today is Monday, November the 27th, 2023. And I want to thank everybody for being here. And somebody was complaining my soundboard was too loud, so I'm going to tweak that and work on that for you guys. Just want to make sure the show is as perfect as it could perfectly be possible. And I don't mind, kind of doing this stuff and figuring it out as I go and kind of learning stuff as I go. And we are not getting a connection here. We are not getting a connection here on YouTube. And we're not getting a YouTube connection. Let me see if Rumble's working. Yeah, Rumble's working. We're on Rumble, folks. Yeah, we're on Rumble. So you can hear the feedback there. There it is. And yeah, we're not getting a live transmission here on YouTube on the setup. Ah, okay. What they did was they did it. Okay, they did it. Okay, I see what they did here. I see what they did here. Okay, no worries, guys. Yeah, we are live on YouTube too for Average Mics. 2024 is going to be a doozy. Oh, it sure is. I'm off today. Mike trucks in the shop. Oh no. Okay, YouTube is working, so we're seeing it from a different angle here. Sorry, guys. It just sometimes things reflect differently on my end. And DLive is up and running. Yeah, Average Mics is running on DLive. DLive did some sort of an update the other day, so hopefully it's the buffering or people experiencing buffering in Australia won't be experiencing it anymore. So hopefully it works out that it works out in Australia. And we got, I'm just opening, you're hearing feedback here because I'm just opening it on, here we are on YouTube, sorry, on Facebook. I'm here on Facebook too, guys, on my fan page, and got our typical 5-6 people watching. Welcome all, welcome everyone. And welcome to Average Mics. It's your average, just average stuff, nothing really going on here on Average Mics. Just average discussion. What do we know, right? Trying to spend hours upon hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure out who the Rumble heroes are and figuring out where things are going and trying to decipher patterns and on Average Mics. Yes. So we got Rick Hunter and Sports in the End Conspiracy. How you doing, buddy? So we got Emperor Rex is laughing, and who else is here? Giovanni, obviously. Giovanni's always in the house on Average Mics. The average, your average discussion. We're gonna get a guest on today. I want to get Supreme Cannon on Average Mics, and I'll go through some headlines and discuss and just just talk about stuff and hopefully he could come on. He told me he could come on, so I don't want to bother people through the week. Usually I bug people on the weekends because it was like, remember, like club nights and stuff, and you go out and you'd be very down if no one knocked on your door or called you or paged you back in the day to tell you to come on, let's go to a club. Hey, let's go, let's go out and let's go have a few drinks. Co-workers are going to be there, or that girl you like is going to be there. Nowadays it's almost like it's just people are becoming more and more isolated now. People are becoming more and more isolated, and it's becoming problematic. You know what I mean? It's becoming problematic, and yeah. So I hope you guys like my background here. I get so many people message me that they want to come and help me fix my basement here. This is just a green screen, folks, and nobody freak out. It's average. It's an average basement for an average talk show for average discussion with average people, okay? So just relax. Everybody take a chill pill and relax. You know what I'm saying? Black Friday was dead in my area. Everyone is broke, says the Walla Mala. Yeah, yeah, everyone's broke. We could go into our channel time machine and talk about people being broke or people were already broke. But the sad part of everything is they really wanted to really take us to the cleaners. They really wanted to push us, and that's where we're at right now, where they really, really wanted to push us, and now we're pushed. Right? So Let's see what's happening here on other Wow, like other platforms are just exploding. I'm just looking at Rumble Heroes, man. They're on fire, man. A blessed day to my fellow freedom lovers, says Memory Man. Good to see you, Memory Man. Yeah. Okay, guys. Let's get into a few things here real quick before we get Supremo on. I just want to show this to you guys real quick, if that's okay. It kind of cleans up a few things and cleans up a few, just so you guys could see. So, Mike in the Night, I put up 531. For some reason, we couldn't stream 531 and we couldn't upload 531. I don't know what was in 531. So, it's called Mike in the Night 531. Edit it and save for Rumble. Next week's news today. And I keep getting this error occurred on the, yeah, it's not playing it. So what I did was, guys, I put a placeholder for 531 here, but I'm going to have to remove it because when people play all or they play shuffle, it's going to land on this one and it won't play and it will just be paused. And then they'll lose their momentum, right? So this one here, I'm not sure what to do. We even edited it so it's safe for Rumble. It's still not accepting the video. There's a couple of Mike of the Nights that are just not allowed on Rumble. They just won't process the video. And it's the same recording bandwidth, same recording bit with the same recording frame rate, the same... It's nothing different. It's nothing different. And that is the problem we're facing here, folks. And I just don't know where to take it anymore. I don't know how to solve this problem. I don't know how to solve this problem anymore. I just... So we got some episodes here. So there's the playlist for you guys. That's the last week's Mike of the Night Aftermath, week 25 we're in, and that is 535 is the last episode if you guys want to jump on and check it. I'll give you a list to the here. I'll give you a link to the playlist. You can find the link in the description below, but if you're on YouTube, I'll give it to you here. And then people on D Live, I'll give you the link here if that's okay. There it is right there if you guys want to see the playlist. And I'm working really hard to actually put this together for you guys because I think it's worth preserving this information because, I mean, you go back and read some of these headlines. These headlines will get me kicked off of YouTube just by reading some of the headlines that we have here for Mike in the Night. Just reading the headlines will get it. So I want to get back to 400, and then I want to get back to 300, and then maybe 200 if I can in the next couple of months. It's going to take a season or two to get this put together. There's Mike of the Night 442. So here's the problem with this when doing all this work. What if there's an episode on there that Rumble or anywhere doesn't like, and they just terminate my channel and I did all this work? That's what I am worried about. That's what I'm worried about, putting in all this time and then I'm screwed. And there's 535 of Mike in the Night if you guys want to join on that one. And then something bizarro happened on Odyssey, and this is not the first time it's happened, where we would go live right here, the live stream wouldn't work, and then the video is posted. It showed up this morning, Monday morning, and we went live on Saturday night, so it just showed up. It's got 11 views on it and 1 like. So there it is right there, folks. Kind of weird what's happening. Kind of weird what's happening. So we got some news coming out of Canada. We got the safest country in the world that took everyone's guns away. And yeah, Trudeau's falling in the polls. Of course he's falling. He's been falling in the polls when he originally ran for prime minister. Unfortunately, people weren't seeing that. They didn't... Well, they had to usher in. They had to usher in and fall in line with the rest of the world. That's plain and simple, right? They had to usher in and fall in line with the rest of the world. So there it is right there. They got RT. So we got some articles. I don't know what any of this stuff is. It's coming out of Australia. And okay, we got the green light from Supreme Cannon. Let's just get them on. We'll go through some headlines together. We'll talk and just talk, you know, like human beings used to do back in the day, right? So we got Sandy Sanderson in the house saying Big Mike. We got A number one, Mediator Kid. Hey, Mike, how you doing, buddy? Who else we got? We got our Rumble. We got Supreme Cannon on Rumble, so he's on there too. And we got 10 people watching on Rumble. Okay, and we got okay, guys, we're gonna kind of alleviate this episode for you guys. It's average, but we're gonna try and be a little bit on the funnier side of things and kind of, I don't know, find some humor in something. I don't know. Everything's just been so down for a lot of people lately, so let's get our Supremo Mano on. Supremo Mano. And
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Supreme Cannon from unknown, uncharted territories, calling into Average Mics. Well, I'm calling you technically, but we already are assigned this, so that means you knew about this, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were communicating telepathically beforehand, so technically, yes, I called you.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, but you know what I mean. So today, let's be a little bit humorous on a little bit of things, Supreme. Everyone's just so down lately.
Well, we'll do what we can, man.
Everyone's just so down lately,
it's understandable. But
you have 300 Rumble heroes giving you the gloom and doom, right? And there's one guy eating rice, and everything looks like, everybody's doing their thing, and everybody seems to be so, you know what I mean? Just so, I don't know. But yeah, we are living in a clown world, says Memory Man. You are correct on that one, my good friend. And we got our usual suspects here already on YouTube, and we got our followers Rumble, and we got D Live is running nicely right now, and Odyssey's not working.
Yes, I see Odyssey isn't working. Yeah, I'm actually running all. I'm running the show on all three tabs: YouTube, D Live, and Rumble. If you guys want to do that too, just mute it on the other tabs, whichever one you prefer to run on, and then we get the views up across all the platforms.
Yeah.
It depends on your internet, but if you don't have dial-up, it shouldn't be a problem for you. I started out on Rumble, but I see most of the traffic and chat traffic is on YouTube, so I've gone over to that now.
I really hope so. I what it is that we are going to enter. We may be entering. Let me correct myself. Some uncharted waters again, and we may be entering into uncharted waters again, and into this abyss. But we need to kind of form together, be together. We need to, there's not a lot of places you could go to where people are interacting with each other, from the host side to the chat side to the call-ins, cold call-ins. There's not a lot of places anymore. Like, I don't think there's anywhere that that does that anymore. Is that, or was that just a early 2000s thing when people started reading comments as they went along to kind of engage, and then it kind of fizzled out? Or what do you think, Supreme?
Well, I think that there've been call-in shows for as long as there's been television, for example. But of course, there's always an underlying editorial frame to most of those talk shows back in the old days. The good thing about podcasting and live streaming is that you could stream about just about anything until probably 2015, 2016, when they suddenly noticed that this was a big problem for the narrative. So they started to try to crack down on it. But little, smaller platforms, the ones that kind of hopefully fly under the radar a little better, like this one. I think this one falls into that category. Yeah, you could talk about anything here. We tend to go down quite a few rabbit holes when we chat, for example.
Or when we do Mike,
start out on one thing and then it. Do Mike in the Night. Yeah,
Mike in the Night on Rumble's kind of wide open. That's a wide open show, wide open. Mike in the Night's wide open. That's why it's only restricted to like one or two platforms, right? And I don't want to lose.
Well, I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to lose my Facebook, and we're live on Facebook too, and on my fan page there. And then we just got someone messaging me saying, "Hey, Mike, Mike, you're live. You showed up on my feed, so that's good." So we are kind
That's
of
good. Yeah.
reaching out, yeah, and people are, but we're average, just hey, how's work? Hey, what kind of coffee you having today? Hey, is your daughter still at ballet? Hey, is your wife feeling better? Like that kind of average one-on-one thing. That's why I call this show Average Mics, because I want to get that feeling of, oh, someone's at my door. Hey, what's up? I haven't seen you in weeks. Well, how you doing? You know, that kind of, one-on-one.
Totally. Totally. I mean, the thing about the term average, when you think of that old picture of a bell curve, right? You see it starts out, low, and then there's that big, thick part in the middle, and then it tapers off as you get more to the right side of it. And we think, okay, well, average is average. But if you look at how the average person has lived in the Western world for, say, since World War II, especially, like in terms of world history, we're rock stars. The average person is a rock star in this part of the world. We don't really understand how far we've come and what we've actually accomplished. We're in many ways we're victims of our own success. I think that's why we've had such stupid ideas and insane ideas that have been able to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't just laugh them off and go, "No, we're not doing that. No, you're an idiot. Forget it." Which would have been an automatic reflex 40 or 50 short years ago, right? But now people, well, maybe that's the way we should go forward. A lot of that knowledge that built up with.
Are you still there? I think we lost Supremo. I think we lost you. We lost you there for like 12 seconds.
Can you hear me?
I could hear you now. I just
okay.
You said something. We lost knowledge.
It's a little choppy. Yeah.
Yeah. We lost.
Yeah, like civilizational wisdom. Hello.
Yeah, we got you. Go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was a little choppy. Yeah. Yeah, civilizational wisdom is something that just kind of got locked in the attic, and now it's just one big social experiment. And you've got a lot of people that look at that and go, "No, this is stupid. I'm not doing this. I'm not participating in this." But unfortunately, you have a lot of other ones that, after a couple of generations, their parents aren't there to say, "No, this is a really dumb idea. Don't do this."
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that way. Don't be ridiculous. Smack. Go to your room. We don't have that.
There was that that clip on South Park. There was a doctor on South Park that was selling a how to straighten out your kids video series. And the whole video series was this doctor going up to kids and shaking them and saying, "Shut the F up and do your homework," and smack them, and then they sit down and start doing their homework. And this conversation reminds me of that little clip on South Park, and how it was just very simple. Nowadays, it's trying to discipline anything, trying to get through to anybody. It's almost like you are approaching, trying to tell someone, "Hey, buddy, you look a little bit on the," like Tony Soprano, when, what's his name? Bobby Bacalao couldn't get into the car, right? Because he was so fat. And Tony goes, "Hey, buddy, why don't you start sticking to salads," right? But nowadays, we just can't talk like that. Like, we just can't openly talk like that. Like, to human, from human to human, we can't. And I am grateful that I was on social media. I am extremely grateful I have been on social media in early years, because the number one thing I'd get from people in the comments, in, like, let's say 2009, 10, 11, 12, up to 2014, 2015, the number one thing I would get from people was, "Look how fat this guy is. This guy's fat. This guy's gross. This guy," and that kept me in check, saying, "Hey, maybe these guys are right. Maybe these guys, it's negative criticism, but it's something I needed to hear." Because I could have easily gone off the rails in my mid-30s, and I could have easily, you know what I'm trying to say? I could have easily put myself, but because of the criticism that was ongoing. And I'm like, well, there's thousands of people watching me, so they might be right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you could take it as trolling or insults, or you could take it as a tough love, right?
Right, and that's what I saw.
Whatever a person's yeah, whatever a person's motivation for saying stuff like that, and sometimes it isn't very, nice. It doesn't come from a very nice place, but it does. What they're basically saying is, there's an area of your life where you're not exercising self-control, and it's affecting your message, right?
Yeah.
Or how they perceive the message. It's not that the things you say weren't true. It's just who they're coming from. There's, a lot of bro cultures like that. Someone says something and the response is, yeah, what's your max bench press? What's your 1 rep max, bro? Kind of a thing, or something like that. It's, in other words, and some of that is, if you're not like me, you're worthless, which is nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. But it's it's feedback. Right, it's like any other marketplace. It's like any other social milieu, right? How people respond to you, it depends where the place they're coming from, what their circumstances are compared to yours.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also sometimes along the line of, if you did something with yourself, you'd probably do a lot better. You'd be received more readily, right? We don't. We expect our commentators to be superhuman anyway, and it's not fair, right?
Superhuman commentators.
Not.
Let's just send out a few shout outs there to some superhuman commentators that are messaging me here on Skype. And yeah, guys, my Instagram it's just not. I can't even get into it, and my X is down too. And I think it's that 30-hour live stream that we did, or 40-hour live stream we did on X. Something may have been said on there, and they just basically nuked the account. Special shout out to Olivia Rodriguez, who is watching Average Mics in Seattle, who sent me an email about a week or two ago asking if we're going to bring back Average Mics because it's one of her favorite shows. So Olivia Rodriguez in Seattle. Benjamin Chang in New York City, who listens to me on earpiece while monitoring phone systems. Interesting. And Maya Patel in Chicago, and Ethan Thompson in Los Angeles, and Sophia Davis in Miami, who've allowed me to say their names because they have nothing to hide, and asked me about Average Mics. So I simply reply to somebody if they email me, hey, is it okay if I just let people know that you're asking about something? Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. I have, so I just wanted to throw that out there because I kind of organized today's show really nicely here. So.
Yeah, well, first of all, welcome to all of them. It's great to know that Mike's got the kind of audience that he has. It's what's made it so fun to participate here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, most people they live in their community. We don't think of ourselves in a parochial way, but the reality is a lot of people, they live in the same neighborhood for most of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have access to the internet and media, and occasionally get on a jet, go somewhere else. It's not like people haven't seen other parts of the world. But I think that most people do, in the end, are still live out their lives within, say 100 miles of, in their entire lifetime, right? Unless you travel for a living, that's how most people are, especially if you got family.
Yes. So we got.
If you have a good community, then by definition you don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
That's part of it, I think.
I think it's about building up your inner and close circles, and we've been talking about that on Mike of the Night. Is start getting to know who your neighbors are. Get a little clipboard, walk around your street, and just find out. Oh, you could weld. Oh, you could fix cars. Oh, you know how to fix generators. Oh, you do this. Oh, and start knowing who knows what and what. Like me, I would kind of me on my blog. I would be maybe into a bit of translation, and I'd be a little bit into broadcasting. If something was to happen and we needed a community to work together, I'd probably be the guy to try and get the word out via social media on my blog, and then somebody else I know would be the guy that would fix the cars or fix, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say, right? It's like getting to know people around, getting to know who's skilled in what.
Well, yeah, if you're a relative newcomer to a community, then you want to get to know that community. You're not in a situation where you're going to try to impose yourself and try to change it to suit yourself. You're going to learn. Well, you're going to assimilate is what you're going to do. That's the goal. I mean, you go to a new community and you get to know who does what and how long they've been there, and you get to know their names, get to know the names of their, their spouses and their kids, and who does what, and just find a place to fit yourself in and keep it going.
Yeah.
Make it better in any way that you can, right? But a lot of people, especially in this kind of, activist fetish that people have now, they go into a community or they even just come back from where they are into their own family, and they're automatically trying to change the way that everyone interacts with each other because of their new theories.
Their new
and
theories.
I don't think that's right. But, well, I know it's not right. It's stupid.
Yeah, the new theories.
You just wind up fragmenting communities.
And that's, Supreme, that's very interesting that you bring that up, because that ties into what we've been on this channel talking about, Amerifornia, Wagons East, where people can't afford to live in California, Oregon, and Washington State, and money laundering and artificially low interest rates, a lot of combination of things that happened that push people east, and we call it Wagons East phenomena here, Amerifornia, where America will turn into basically all of California with multiple layers of government, high taxes, government jobs is pretty much the only job you can get that allow you to live, and that's really interesting that you point that out here on Average Mics.
Well, there's a concept, especially from the age of mass travel, the concept of the ugly American, right? Where other cultures in the world, they have Americans show up and they're loud and they're boisterous and they're waving money around and they expect everything to cater to them and what they want, right? Which, any obnoxious tourist would qualify, but the mass understanding of the term is ugly American. What we have now is other Americans in other parts of America experiencing the phenomenon of the ugly American. But being Americans, I don't think they're going to put up with it.
I hope so, and I keep telling
these people.
And I keep telling them.
Well, you've got this is the thing. If just so I can finish my thought, if you have a coherent community, right, and someone comes in that starts trying to impose values that aren't kept your community together, there are probably other ways of getting them to either tone it down or get out.
Hey, we got a problem with him, Hershey?
It depends. It depends on how coherent that community is, though.
You got a problem with him, Hershey? Huh? Oh, what's wrong with him, Hershey? I don't even know what the hell that means, but still, yeah. I see where you're coming from on that end, him, Hershey, but still, this Wagons East phenomenon is taking America by storm right now as we are talking, as people are fleeing to greener or affordable pastures, and taking their wagons to the unknown horizon. But then it goes back to what you said 8 minutes ago. They're bringing their ways. Why don't they leave their ways behind, Supreme? Or what they've learned in the destructive areas they were in?
Because they don't understand cause and effect. They don't understand the reason their communities became unlivable was because of the policies they supported. I mean, there's Americans, and then there's universalist Americans who think that America is just a geographical spot on a map that just happens to be more prosperous than others, without understanding exactly how it got to be that way. This is why we have this destruction in so many communities, is because they don't get it. Like, no, you actually have to participate in your community as it's constituted. You have to. You can't be fighting everything. You can't. You don't get to be Che Guevara in your own, housing association. Like you've got to. There are rules that have to be followed. There's a reason that things are set up the way they are.
And that's why
there might be ways to improve things, but it's got nothing to do with, you've got to balance the books too.
Him or she,
right? You need some common sense. Yeah, him or she. Yeah, yeah. Like you can't be talking about rewiring the human race when you go into a cohesive community. Like you've got to figure out how people think, and they don't bother to do that. They just want to be that ugly American that basically becomes a tourist inside their own country.
Yeah,
that goes somewhere else and expects things to cater to them, right? And it's no, because you're dealing with other Americans. They're going to tell them to pound sand.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen. And that's why
Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
giving this Amerifornia angle on it, because it's the only way I could think it up. It's the only way it makes any sense for me. I have videos going back 7 years talking about Amerifornias coming. I was shocked when I found them. It's like, holy crap. It's like, this
Yeah.
is, yeah.
But remember that America, well, when you talk about California, okay, California was a solidly Republican state until the mid 1980s amnesty. Then it became permanently blue. But outside of, say, San Francisco, LA, maybe Sacramento, a lot of California is still quite conservative. These are people that made that into a beautiful place and made it even more beautiful and are very reluctant to leave. So a lot of people have left places like California. They're not just yuppies, like they're people that have given up. It's just, I can't afford to live here anymore. I don't like where it's going. I apparently can't change it. So I'm going to go look for something in Arkansas.
Right.
Something affordable, somewhere where I can practice some internal geo arbitrage.
Yeah, but the problem is they bring the him, her, she there. Him, her, she is not required in Arkansas. It's only California.
Yeah, but it won't go far there. So those people will either conform or they'll just leave.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it takes a while, and again, I mean, if you can't make a difference at the federal level, then you go to the state level. And if you can't make a difference at the state level, then you make it at the county level. I mean, where are most of these people living? Yeah, where most people in, say, Southern California are moving to, they're moving to another large city.
Mm-hmm.
They're not moving to, they're not buying 10 acres in the middle of nowhere, generally speaking. I think they're looking for a place in the suburbs where they can either work remotely or they can find similar employment to what they have. That's what I would be doing if I was in that situation. So I'm just assuming, projecting my own prejudices on it. Sure. Mm-hmm. They're definitely responsible for spoiling places like Colorado, like Denver and Aspen and places
Arizona
like that.
Calizonia. Texas is turning into Texifornia. Floridafornia, where it's getting bad. It's getting really, really bad. It's almost like that episode of South Park where it was a Jersey thing with people from Jersey Shore were moving west in America, and they were turning everything into New Jersey. And then I still remember Randy was looking at the TV. Oh my God, they've arrived in Philly, Jersey, and now they're taking over. What was it? Pennsylvania, so you know what I'm saying? They were like kind of like already staging the names as the Jersey Shore people were going across America to change, and they were really spot on with that episode when they did that. They were really, really spot on.
Yeah, for sure. But it comes down to, again, how are people like these thriving when they're this dysfunctional? Mm-hmm. And this clueless. Like, we've created a society where it's possible for people like this to thrive and multiply. This is unprecedented. There isn't any other place in the world where people like this have managed to gain this level of economic and political power that are just so dysfunctional and destructive everywhere they go, and self-destructive. It's in a lot of ways, even if you have a good job and you've got a good income and a comfortable life, I still think that you should be prepping, because these people bring a lack of confidence, mm-hmm. A lack of attachment to reality, and a lot of that is, as I've said many times, I mean, we don't live in reality in the Western world because we've had 50 odd years of deficit spending to paper over the consequences that should have resulted from these things. Our society should have corrected decades ago. Mm-hmm. But they haven't, because we've been able to basically, rob the rest of the world for, since World War II, basically, mm-hmm. to keep the lights on and keep money flowing and give people all kinds of comfortable make work jobs where they can consider themselves successes. And the reality is they're not contributing anything particularly meaningful to society.
Okay.
That's how I see it anyway. I mean, when you look at it in the aggregate, that's exactly what you have, right? You've got people doing things that aren't that wouldn't be conducive to a growing and prosperous society. We've had years of austerity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, austerity for some, but not for others. Some people are living very large.
Yep, they are.
You know,
Austerity
I
measures
mean, the ones
started to really take effect in Europe in 2002, 2003. They started really cutting back in Germany, Poland, France. They were cutting back on a lot of austerity measures were put in place there. And that's where I started to see it really hitting hard when you were seeing protesting every weekend from teachers, unions, from like healthcare workers to firefighters. It was just they were just bombarded with protests in the early 2000s, right?
Yes. How can you have productivity when people can hardly put food on the table? Well, productivity was supposed to do that, you know. Yeah, you can't really call it productivity. I mean, we shipped a lot of our heavy manufacturing, the things that used to pay well, you know, and add value to, you know, to a large segment of the economy that is suffering, has been suffering for a long time. We sent it over to China. That was considered productivity. Right, productivity growth is either more tech or, you know, find lower labor costs.
That's the sad part we're in. And the Clinton,
right? Those things. That's the sad part. Yeah, they're not looking after their own people. They're looking after their own bottom lines.
Well, the Clinton administration allowed China to be on the world trade. You know, made China more exclusive to everyone.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Back during the Clinton administration, a lot of people didn't know how much damage that caused. I still remember the stickers on the back of cars, like when I was living in Toronto, and we'd be on the highway, and on the back of the bumper, it would say, "Please buy an American car built by your brother or your countryman in Michigan." And we would see those stickers like, "Buy an American-built car and keep your American brothers or keep Canadians and Americans working," and because we were already losing it then. That was the early 80s. Those bumper stickers were out. And we were already starting to slip down a slippery slope. And economically, we don't even, in Canada, right? It's so bad. We don't even own, a majority of our bigger coal mines are owned by China. A majority of our gold mines are owned by, I could bring the articles up if people don't believe me. A majority of our housing, not a majority, but a good percentage of our housing is vacant and owned by foreign Chinese investors. And it's the Canadian government that put these things into place because they were back in 2010 when they introduced the Vancouver model that basically bring your laundered money in. We don't care where you got it from, no questions asked model. And you could go ahead and buy property and just leave it empty. But if a Canadian buys a second home, they have to live in it for 2 years before they could rent it out. But if you're a foreign investor from China, we don't care. Buy it, leave it empty. We don't care. And that's a big problem. People could look into it and say, wait, if you want to buy a second home in Canada, you have to live in it before you could rent it out. Yeah, the laws here are draconian for Canadian proper, but the laws don't apply equally to everybody else. It's so economically, Canada knew, Australia knew, New Zealand knew, these UK knew, they knew we were losing in the early 80s. So what they started to do was started to ramp up the building, start ramping up the infrastructure. And because they knew eventually we were going to be bought out. A tsunami of investors are going to come out and just completely obliterate us. And that's this economic takeover we've been talking about for the last 10 years here. And we're seeing it in full force.
Yes, part of it. Well, it was a poison pill, right? It was a Faustian bargain. We got all kinds of cheap manufactured goods from China to at least partially mask over the destruction from industrialization over here. But China had this massive trade surplus, and the only way we were going to keep them in the game is if we gave them the right to come and buy stuff from us. And since we don't export any, as you've said yourself, we effectively exported like real estate, resources and things like that, right? Mines and other production facilities. Mm-hmm. But it's reached a point in time where the utility of this to China is dwindling by the day too.
Yes, it
is. Because I mean, you've already had tariff barriers and sanctions and things like that against China. You know, the United States is, as Henry Kissinger said, it's dangerous to be America's enemy, but it's fatal to be America's friend. I think the Chinese have come to that conclusion, and I think they're starting to back away. I would not be surprised to see a lot of the stuff come back on the market.
Well, they're going to
in some ways, as I've said before, it could be a financial neutron bomb.
Well, trains going east and west across Canada. People are observing and saying everything. It's all going to the coast to be shipped to China. Our coal, our lumber, everything. Some of the lumber mills that I know of are in production to sell to China. They're not even in production to sell to Canadian proper. And if you want to buy lumber to build a house here in Canada, prepare $70,000 to $140,000 just in 2x4s, just to buy 2x4s. That's how. Remember the lumber wars we went into about 3 years ago, and it hasn't really cooled down as much as it should have, to reflect where wages are. Where the average Canadian could say, well, I got a bit of land my dad left me. I'm just going to build a house there. Well, he can't build a house. He's got to get permits. He's got to get all this ducks in a row. He's got to get all this stuff done. And in the end, you know what I mean? He builds a house that he could realistically build somewhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico for $50,000. And it costs him $600,000 to do the same thing here. That's the problem we're at right now. Canada's in a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on here, but yeah.
Yeah, we're in big trouble. Yeah, no question about it. I mean, the second largest country on earth, and there's no cheap land here.
And it has a lot to do with the crown land system that we have too. It also has a lot to do with foreign investing and leaving everything empty and creating artificial shortages too, right? So
yes, that should not be permitted to happen. It should never have been permitted to happen. It should have been regulated against before it even became a problem.
Yep,
absolutely.
So
and they didn't, because needless to say, it's usual. There was probably bribery. There was probably a certain amount of compromise. Someone has a video of someone doing something they shouldn't ought to have been doing, and so they just pretend not to. See it, right? And yeah, here we are, and we're a small country. I mean, it's an enormous place. But population-wise, even now, it's a small country. There's no room for this kind of nonsense here.
No, we don't.
It becomes so much more. It becomes so much more obvious here than it would say in the United States, where you can literally use, the whole territory. Canada, I mean, the upper 2/3 of Canada is basically uninhabitable. It's not impossible, but unless you can work remotely, there's not much to do there. Unless you work at a mine or something.
And it's expensive to live up in some of them places too. I had a friend tell me he lives in Whitehorse or something, and it's a fortune to live up there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they actually have northern tax credits. Like they give people financial incentives, breaks on their taxes to live further north. Because there's just not that many people up there. So the supply chains, they'll go there, but it's way out of their way. So it's, everything costs extra to get to these places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should be more efficient than that. But, I think this is more of an afterthought anyway. I don't think these people have any kind of overarching strategy for the development of Canada. They want to increase the population to 100 million, but
the infrastructure won't support it. The European expansion is finished. The Europeans brought over sanitation. They built the Sky Dome. They built the Air Canada Center. Well, how do you know that, Mike? It was Europeans because my dad worked on it. He was a Portuguese, and all the crews were Portuguese, Italian, and Greeks. And built all these buildings, built all the roads, built the infrastructure, connected the country highway-wise when it came to maintaining and blowing up rock to get through. It was all European expansion. It was all heavy-duty European expansion that then basically in 1993, Canada decided to close immigration from Europe because they felt that they needed to open the doors to other and give other people a chance to come. But everyone was given a chance to come, whether they were from Pakistan, Ethiopia, China, wherever they were from, they had a chance to come to Canada. It's just, it was just very expensive to come to Canada. When we came to Canada, we had to borrow money from family to come here. We had to make sure we knew the national anthem. We had to make sure we understood basic English. We had to make sure a lot of things just to be able to be and work in Canada, right? And it wasn't cheap to come to Canada and back in those days. We had to really, and then a lot of other cultures did not want to take that chance or did not want to, you know what I mean? Because then they would have to contribute to the infrastructure. They would have to contribute to building the country. And a lot of cultures just didn't want to be part of that in that era, they wanted to come when everything was here, the electricity, the running water, the systems are all put in place, and they don't have to do nothing. Just come in, go on a computer, click a few buttons, talk a lot, and that's it.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's we're not talking immigrants here anymore. Oh, okay, there's a difference between settlers and immigrants. Yes, this place was just raw prairie and a bush, and somebody had to push in the roads and the right of ways and build the towns and the infrastructure and get it all going. Most of that stuff was in by the mid 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
Canada was built already. Yeah, Canada doesn't need building anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's built. Like in some cases it's underbuilt because we got a bunch of people here that can't afford real estate, but that's more to do with monetary policy.
That's correct, sir.
Than to do with the reason that people can't afford things. Either you got to bring prices down, or which could crash the banks, or you've got to bring wages up, which means closing the borders, and or something in between them so that those two lines intersect again. And it's political suicide for whoever decides to do one or the other. Yeah. But I've always maintained that I think that math and physics and thermodynamics and all of these cool things are going to do the job for us, and we just have to hang on until it happens. Anyone who can make it in Canada will stay. Anyone who can't make it in Canada without some kind of government support won't be here in 10 years.
That's why we're seeing this mass reversal of people going back to their countries. And unfortunately, Canada's not offering you a free flight back to your country of origin. America is offering right now a free flight back to Honduras or Ecuador or wherever you're from. But because Canada doesn't border kind of like a third world-ish type country, they have to fly in their migrants. And that's on the taxpayer, right?
Yes.
So and the hotel stays and everything is on the taxpayer, but a lot of them are realizing they don't want to be in Canada. So they want to go back, but they're not offered a free plane ticket back to where they were from. Unfortunately, they're pretty much stuck here until they can make their money. Kind of like that movie Born in East LA, where Buddy's he didn't have his passport or ID on him, so he got deported back to Mexico, and they wouldn't let him back into America. And that's how a lot of people feel here today. It's that Born in East LA scenario where they were brought over thinking there was going to be yellow brick roads and lollipop guilds and the lullaby guilds, but there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And now they realize that they just want to go back to their country and be back with their people, which is nothing wrong. It's just they don't have the funds to do it now. So
they're kind of trapped here.
Yeah,
it's a total scam. It's a scam to them too. I mean, I'm not knocking on migrants coming here. A lot of them coming from terrible places, and there were rumors and advertising things like that. Oh, come to Canada, the land of milk and honey, and everything will be here for you. This is a harsh place to live.
It's not
just climate. I mean, it's a harsh place to live.
They flipped the switch.
It's not easy to live here. It really never has been. Yeah.
Well, hear me out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Don't be sorry. They flicked the switch on the infrastructure. They flicked the switch on our power or anything. We're sitting ducks here. We are, again, like the climate is not friendly here. The climate is not, it's not a tourist destination to come and get some sun. The climate here is very rugged and wild and barren and very, like where I live, I'm surrounded by mountains. I got fresh water. It's good in a doomsday apocalypse that I'm not in the city. It's good that, I'm in a small cul-de-sac and I know everyone around me. It's kind of good, that I've built those relationships over time. But it's rough it's rough. It wouldn't take much for moose and caribou and deer if the infrastructure goes down, the lights go down, and cars stop running, and people can't get gas for their cars, and everything starts to, kind of shut down. You'll start to see, the running water stops running. It'll get really bleak and dark here. It's not like we're somewhere off of South Beach where you could just leave the screen door and sliding door open of your apartment all year round and let the fresh air come in and you know what I mean? And the sun would come in and disinfect and bring in that natural, we don't have that in Canada, unfortunately.
That's not large parts of it. No, I mean where you live and where I live, summers get awful hot here. It can kind of serve that purpose, but it's very seasonal. And in the wintertime, yeah, you're buttoned up. You're living with stale air and whatever else just because of how it is here, right, Deborah? It's called slave labor. Essentially, yes, it is. It is slave labor because these people come here and they don't have, they can't afford to live here, but they can't get home, so they have to stay here and take what they can get. You've got people living 10 or 12 to an apartment. Mm-hmm. Basically you think of those dormitories that people lived in during the Industrial Revolution. That's kind of what we have here, and it's ridiculous. And I think that we're going to have a lot of unrest. And a lot of the unrest isn't even necessarily going to come from people like us, Mike. It's going to come from people who came here within the last 40, 50 years mm-hmm. and are kind of stuck here and demand a better deal, right? I mean, sometimes I don't... I'm not a socialist at heart, but the labor movements, the movements that arose 100 years ago, when you see how people were living at that time, it's perfectly understandable. And I think I probably would have supported them too, because the average person just they were not getting a share of that productivity. They weren't getting a share of the boom. Mm-hmm. Maybe their lives were getting somewhat better because the unit price of anything you needed to buy, mechanization reduced that unit cost so that you could at least survive. But it was a pretty hard scrabble life with long hours and dangerous working conditions. And knowing that you had this caste system that was emerging, that wasn't just the aristocracy, but it was the nouveau riche aristocracy that made a living of exploiting their workers. Mm-hmm. And the people that were helping them do it were interchangeable cogs. In some ways, that's what they're trying to do now with all this diversity talk. They don't actually want diversity. They don't care about a person's color or place of origin, but they all have to think the same. Mm-hmm. They have to have the same ideology. Otherwise, they're unacceptable. They're that unacceptable fringe minority that our beloved prime minister talks about all the time. Yeah, coffin apartments for $2,000. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The Russians, the communist bloc. When they built those cookie cutter apartment buildings all over Russia and Eastern Europe, well, people don't understand that for a lot of people, that was a major step up. They lived in little hardscrabble huts and cabins and had to farm their own food, and now they're in a place with central heating and hot, cold running water and public transport, and they planned cities with schools and offices, close to the places of work. They planned their communities. They were pretty
Chinese ghost cities,
cookie cutter, but they were still a step up from what there was.
Chinese ghost cities were the same thing. They built these ghost cities all over China, and they were actually advertising. I was watching a video I made back in 2014 where I was talking about these ghost cities. They were advertising them as a massive opportunity for Chinese retiring people retiring to these communities, and to this day they're still abandoned. No one's retiring to those communities. From 2014 till 2023, late 2023, no one's moved into those communities. They're still abandoned.
I think they will, though, because you got that enormous retired population in China, or people, older workers, right, because of their own demographic problems. Mm-hmm. And I think what you'll have, and I think you'll find the same thing here, Mike, is you're going to find the state is being expected to look after these retirees, and they simply won't have the funds. So what you're going to have, I think, is you're going to have a lot of these abandoned condo towers, but you're also going to have a lot of this abandoned commercial real estate, dead shopping malls and things like that. You think about it, they're level entry. They have escalators and elevators. They're conveniently located where public transport and all that. And I think that what they're just going to do is they're going to turn them into housing developments for seniors. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them, that's what they're going to wind up being. Because if you look at your average Walmart, it has a clinic. There's usually an eye doctor, something there. You have a pharmacy. You got lots of room for somebody to get around in on a scooter without having to go outside. But if they want to go outside, a shuttle bus, will take them downtown. Every little every town over 10,000 people in Canada has a shuttle bus going back and forth from retirement homes to take people to, take them out so they can go out to eat and or go shopping or whatever. I think that's what we're going to find going forward is we have to warehouse a lot of people. And we'll make it as comfortable as possible, but it's going to have to be efficient.
Well, I was looking into something a few years back where they were looking at converting these empty malls into living centers for seniors.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. The retail apocalypse is upon us. It was delayed somewhat by Charlie 19 and all that nonsense. But you've reached the point now where governments, just the amount of money they're going to have to spend on servicing their debts going forward, however long it lasts. They've got to do something with all these retirees, and I think that it would be a lot more cost effective for them to just take these dead shopping malls and use them for exactly that. They're centrally heated and climate controlled. They've got multiple floors. They're safe. They're easy to guard.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of parking for family and, ambulances and things like that.
You could pitch a tent in the parking lot. You could pitch a big, medical tent in the parking lot. Wink, wink.
Well, you would, yeah. Well,
I'm being sarcastic here.
Have to do that. Well, yeah, a lot of them have full. I realize, but they have full hookup for RVs. Yeah. You've got transients. They'd have a place to hook up and dump their tanks and fill up their fresh water and carry on too. I mean, we're going to have a fairly transient society if no one can afford homes. So I just think you're going to have central locations where, seniors and others that have been dependent on government cheese,
mm-hmm.
right? Like you've got a lot of people who are poor, right? You got a lot of single parent families, shall we say? Okay, and it's simply not possible for them to make it on their own. So if the state is going to have to take the responsibility of housing them, then it's going to be a lot more cost effective for them to just simply put these people up in places like that.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to leave them to freeze under the bridge. We're no one's going to put up with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to put them somewhere where they can be looked after better, So I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like a dormitory living. It could be a lot more comfortable than something from the Industrial Revolution. But I don't think there's a choice. I think that's going to be the future. I mean, for the rest of our natural lives, that's what we're going to be seeing.
Right.
People who aren't independently wealthy are going to wind up living in a place like that. And it could be made fairly comfortable. And as I said, they're centrally located, at level entry, access to services. It would be a lot more efficient too. We don't have the same fixation on efficiency that we used to have because of ideology. But the ideology won't survive the end of deficit spending.
That's right.
There's going to be hard choices that need to be made, and I think that's the next thing.
So
I just think it's coming.
I'm perusing around here, and there's Trends in the Housing Market we did back in 2014, where we're discussing mall conversions coming soon to a city near you, and that's something we've been very vocal about. And then I found another video where mall conversions is a must for seniors to retire, and but this was back again 10 years ago or 9 or 8 years ago. They're already putting these seeds into place because they see that we have this horrendous amount of people retiring. Our sanitation's good, so people are living longer thanks to the European expansion, but the problem is people start to wear down and get older and need a little bit more attention than usual. And a lot of people are grumpy, and you need, social people to be there to help them through the transition, as they age. And this is something we were on the forefront about for a while now. And I think we even had somebody that worked as a mall manager. I think it was over at Galleria Mall, call into the show and say that they were approached by a provincial level government that actually wanted to maybe use the area or reconstruct it to convert it into senior living, or use the mall on its own in existence. I don't know what happened to the mall now, but there was a lot of rumors floating around about this already now. And I think governments know, and that's why they had to pull the trigger on the and why they had to do everything they had to do. And it's all population control in the end, right? And it's really sad. And we've been telling you guys on this channel, don't trust your governments at all.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I mean, there's certain things that they'll do, but they won't do it well. They won't do it as well as maybe you could yourself. But preferably, if you're 40 or under, yes, definitely expect that you're going to be taking responsibility for the entire course of your life, and don't count on the state to do any of it for you. Unfortunately, the money is not there, and they're not doing anything to help the youth who would be expected to pay the taxes to support all of this.
Right.
Not just the seniors, but all of these social obligations that the state has taken upon itself. Absolutely expect that you're going to have to look after yourself. Make sure you got good relations with your families, if you can. I understand it's bad out there, and it has been for a long time.
Reunite with families, guys. Reunite with families. Stop the family divide. The family divide needs to end here. People are divided over global warming.
You just gotta let go.
Yeah, people are divided over global warming. Donald Trump farted. Voting machines, 9/11. People are divided from so much stuff at the household level. It's disgusting. And that's how they got you. That's how they got you. They got you when they divide you.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, that's a good example. Mom's a capable woman who is now a widow. She does not want to live alone. She's in a mobile in Ontario year round. The low-income homes being built cost more monthly than the land she rents. Yes. Yeah, that's awful. That's a terrible situation. The disintegration of our communities, of our neighborhoods, and things like that are just inhuman. It's disgusting. The social experimentation. Yeah, mercy choke. Yeah, I'm Gen X too. I'm perpetually grumpy as well. Yeah. It definitely comes with the territory. We were the ones who grew up in the last glimmers of that world beforehand, and have been watching the decline our entire adult lives. And I think that we'll live to see the end of it and it change into something else. I don't know if we're ever really going to have our hands on the levers of power, because our elders apparently intend to have them pried from their, arthritis-ridden fingers. But if we had the chance, we would do things differently. That's for sure.
Speaking of differently, let's head over and spare a thought for those living in Canada. If you're watching this internationally, let's spare a thought for those living in Canada, the most safest country that ever existed in existence of mankind, because they took all our guns away and we can't defend ourselves. Well, something mysteriously is going on, and I kind of want to cover this. Fourth victim confirmed dead in Winnipeg shooting, and police search for suspect in Winnipeg shooting as fourth victim confirmed dead. Winnipeg police have confirmed the fourth person is dead after shooting on Langside Street over the weekend. Investigators have yet to make an arrest, but say the suspect is considered dangerous. The incident unfolded Sunday morning at the 100 block Langside Street. 2 people were pronounced dead at the scene. A man and a woman and 3 other people were taken to hospital in critical condition. Police confirmed Monday that 2 of their victims have since died. A man and a woman. And Winnipeg Police Services WPS Inspector Jennifer McKinnon said that the man died shortly after arriving at a hospital, while a woman died Sunday evening. A 55-year-old man remains in hospital in critical condition. Police released the identity of the 4 people killed in the shooting. They include Sister Crystal Shannon Brendy, 34, and Stephanie Amanda Birdie, 33, as well as 29-year-olds Meleki Leslek, I think he's Polish, and 41-year-old Dylan Maxwell. And this is basically what's happening. And if people, how do these people get, okay, if they can't get, how do these people get guns? If we can't even, purchase guns openly, how do these people get these guns that are stated as, concealed carry 6-shooters are almost impossible to find in Canada, or magnums and stuff like that. But people are still getting their hands on it, even though it's supposed to be safe to take everyone's guns away. That's why I keep telling Americans, don't give up your guns.
Well, no one should give up their guns. Hide them in the floorboards. Don't ever give them up.
Right.
There are lots of guns. Mike, there are lots of guns in Canada. That's not the issue.
Okay. So criminals are still obtaining them, of
it's
course.
It's just that most people... Well, of course they are, yeah. Well, there's lots of unregistered firearms in Canada. Remember that registration only came along in the mid 90s, and Ottawa couldn't possibly have done that more incompetently. And there were plenty of guns that you didn't need a license for. I mean, I got my first rifle on Christmas when I was 13, and my dad bought it from the general store at Adams Lake. You know, and a couple of boxes of 22 longs to go with it. I mean, you just bought them. People had gun racks in the back of their pickups for hunting season. Like it literally was just not that big of a deal. Everybody kind of knew each other. It was incredibly rare when something like that happened.
Yeah, it was. And when people had access to guns, and you saw them on the back of pickup trucks, they were all over the place. It wasn't a big deal. And then government spun it, because obviously when governments lose grip in society, what do people do? Pitchforks and torches. They come, basically, governments out. And when people lose confidence in governments, obviously you'll see civil unrest, and governments are doing whatever they can to stay in power, and obviously disarming the citizens is obviously like plan one, comment number one, and step one: disarm your citizenry, right? And then plan two, step two: divide them between each other after you disarm them, so they don't shoot each other. And then from this divide, you go ahead and start federalizing things and making people feel that they're safe with the government, right? And none of it works from any other angle, in part, or whatever.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. It doesn't work. They're completely incompetent. I mean, you think of it, and they're planning to impose this kind of tyranny on us, and they suck at it.
Big time.
Just about every decade, you have a Liberal government that wants to impose some kind of gun control in Canada, and all they do is piss people off, and it never survives a court challenge because it's stupid. They can't make a case for it. You got handgun shootings in downtown Vancouver and downtown Toronto and downtown Montreal and pretty much nowhere else. This is an enormous country.
It is.
And we have people that live in these urban bubbles that have no idea what it's like outside of the city limits, unless they're, flying to a climate conference somewhere. Excuse me, in some other city. Right? They don't understand that for a lot of people, especially the ones in more rugged areas, their guns aren't for fun. They're literally tools.
Yep, survival.
To protect their livestock or their guide trappers and things like that.
Horse thieves, all kinds.
There are all kinds. There are rustlers, yeah. There's cattle rustlers even today.
Yep, they go around and pick up trucks and pick up cattle. They go pick up cattle, and the average head of cattle is about 4 large, right? So they would pick up a cattle. That's $4,000 walking around grazing, and they go in these pickup trucks and they start picking up people's property, right? And it's yeah,
gun racks are legal in Canada. They probably are. I think they probably just get frowned on. I haven't seen one in the back window of a pickup in BC for a long time, but further north, they're probably not an issue.
I want to see that. I want to see kids piled up in the back of
most truck.
I want to see. I want to see kids.
Well, they stopped doing.
Yeah, I want to see kids piled up on the back of pickup trucks again. I want to see, because this whole safety, inclusiveness, all this garbage they're throwing at us from every angle, whether it's from our weapons or what we want to own as a private citizen, from tracking our phones, from it's all it's going to come down, Supreme. I think everything's going to come down so hard that I think people are going to want that way of life back, like 70s and 60s, 70s.
I agree. You're seeing pushback now, right? Like you look what's happening in Alberta right now, right? They're decentralizing their healthcare, like nurse practitioners, like that primary care. They'll be able to set up their own clinics without government interference.
That's great,
right? So that's really good. That's what you need. You need to decentralize it because it's too it just costs too much. It's just a waste of money, and you can't waste money. This is the thing. For things like this, you can't waste money. We're too large of a country with too small of a population. The goal in the 70s and 80s would you'd have a full service clinic in every town over a village over 1,000 people. Well, it's not working, and they're closing down. So what are you going to do? You can't leave people to die. What are you going to do?
Okay.
So you've got a situation where someone is willing to reorganize their system to try to get it going. And of course, they're getting major pushback from public sector unions. But what they can't do is say that it's not working. Right? Just to get to my last point there, we reached the point where we have to fall back on the lesser magistrates.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We can't depend on the federal government for anything. They've gone completely rogue. So it falls to the provinces.
It does.
The provinces have to protect their citizens' rights, and look after their interests, because Ottawa won't do it anymore.
All right.
Same problem in the States.
All right. Let's
Go
get
ahead.
to my little problem that I'm facing here. I am signed up for my first virtual call to speak to a doctor over the phone in a few days, and unfortunately I just can't get in to see a doctor. I haven't seen a doctor since 2019, and unfortunately I just can't see a doctor. So they signed me up for a virtual tour. I was told that basically because of the housing crisis, more and more doctors just can't afford to live in Canada, and basically she blatantly told me that. And I said to her, "Did you say housing crisis?" And she said yes. Mm-hmm. And I went on my spiel for like 13 minutes, and she listened to every word I said. And she's like, "Wow, I'm happy I made this call to book you for this." So there's a virtual tour I have to do to see a doctor or to hear from a doctor. Now, here's the other problem. My hospital, I think, just reopened this morning. It was closed for 2 days. So the hospital is constantly closing here in my town. And yes, there's 2 stoplights, but the problem is there's like 7,000 people here. And we're paying like $4,700 for property tax for the 2 stoplights. That's a big problem here. And this is what's happening. And you telling me that they're going to be opening private clinics in Alberta where people could go see a doctor, and it's decentralized, I think that's amazing. And that's what I've been hoping for the longest time, because I would gladly pay a couple of $100 to go get a checkup. I'd gladly pay a couple of $100 to get my blood work. I don't have to wait 300 years to get it done, right? Yes. I would gladly pay for this stuff. And then you know what the governments, I think, are scared of is that because you're paying for healthcare, you could find a way to expense it into your income taxes. And they're afraid that people will be expensing healthcare through income tax, right? And they get a discount, or they get a alleviated tax or a bigger tax return because they have to go off the system to get healthcare. And I think governments are looking at this on every angle, saying we're going to lose money that way, and we're going to, so I think we should have privatized healthcare for those that choose to have it. I really think, because then they're not bought and paid for. They're not regurgitating the garbage that they're being told by big pharma. They're not regurgitating the bullshit that and the him and the her, whatever. And that's what I'm really hoping for in our healthcare system here in British Columbia. But yeah, go ahead, Supreme.
Yeah, the idea of nurse practitioners is they could theoretically afford to set up shop in every little town could have one to look after, a couple of thousand people. And the idea of primary care is you go to somebody with a hangnail, or you go to somebody with you don't have to go to an emergency room. You don't have to drive to the next big town to the emergency room. You can go to a nurse practitioner. You can go to someone who could serve probably as a midwife, right? You've got someone who could make house calls if necessary, right? You've got situations where a whole lot of triage can take place, and then only the hardest cases get referred to the hospitals. It lightens the workload for everyone, right? And I mean, obviously, there's no stomach in the healthcare bureaucracies themselves to reorganize themselves to move people through the system faster. We have the technology, and the people have the training, and they should be able to see everybody for the amount of money we're spending. Right. And that doesn't seem to be the case. Like there's places where they're stacked up in the hallways like cordwood, and that's terrible. And I imagine the people working in that environment, it's hard on their morale too. So, you need a sense of teamwork again in that kind of primary care. where people are doing good, and they know they're doing good, and they're not creating extra burdens for healthcare. We have a crisis, and the idea of a crisis is that should give you license to make decisions.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, you're going to have people saying, "Oh, this is all wrong, and you shouldn't do this. We just need more money." It's like, okay, well, there is no more money, and we still have to do something, so we're going to do this instead. Right? But someone has to be willing to make the decision, and usually they don't get that kind of empowerment until you have a crisis. You know, our whole country is in crisis in a lot of ways, and we need hard decisions made, and we need them regardless of political expediency, and we need them yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously.
It's not like we're paying. It's not like we're not paying for it. We're paying for this through the nose.
Well, we are, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and people can't pay more. The more you expect people to pay, the more people you put on the street. Like carbon tax and things like that are basically GST 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more money going into a rat hole, and we just reached a point where people that don't understand how our civilization got to be as powerful and wealthy as it is, right? Like we're all playing on the infrastructure that was built by smarter people 60 years ago,
right?
And we need people that can maintain it.
Again, it's the end of the European expansion is finished.
Well, yes, or at least it's in a hiatus for now.
I don't think Europeans want to come back to Canada ever, like the glory days, like after World War II.
Well, if Mike, if there wasn't such an emphasis on reducing their influence
mm-hmm.
and impeding them from doing the things necessary to keep things orderly and the books balanced, they'd probably be happy to come here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case. Like it got to the point where it's like, okay, if you're a descendant of any of the people that actually founded the place,
mm-hmm.
or anybody that arrived within the last 100 years, say since World War II, then you need to understand that we're building something different now. No, we're not going to tell you what it is. No, we didn't actually have a mandate. Nobody actually voted for it. But we're going to remodel Canada and turn it into a snow-covered gay disco. But we don't want to tell you that.
Yeah.
Right, where everybody thinks the same thing and they all live in a state of rainbow solidarity. And, I mean, it's more complex than that, obviously. But, no, you've got people that don't know how to build countries trying to rebuild this one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. I mean, the place is too cold. It's too big. We don't have room for mistakes like this.
No, we don't.
And now people are suffering. People are living in tents and parks that should have been gainfully employed and living a middle class lifestyle.
Exactly.
Right? You've got a few very wealthy people sitting on top of it all, thinking they're winning, while they're actually sawing off the branch that they're sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
And even the thing about the crown land, yeah, a lot of land is tied up under the crown. That's true. Occasionally they release some of it so that people can buy it and develop it and do things with it. But if it was a choice between the crown owning it and BlackRock owning it, I know how I would vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in that at all. Bill Gates can't buy crown land. That works for me.
Mm-hmm. I see.
At least there's hope. It preserves some kind of hope. You know what I mean?
Is this
bad. It's
Supreme
a bad situation, but it could be a lot worse.
Is this the introduction to the opposites now?
I don't know what you mean.
I'm joking. There used to be a little sitcom show I used to watch where there was an introduction to the opposites, and it would be like the kid would come home from school hungry, and it's like, have some chips and have some fried chicken and some junk food, and they would say, oh, this is the introduction. So it would be the opposite of what normally, you know what I'm trying to say. If anyone knows what TV show that's from, this is just the introduction to the opposites. Can you comment below and let me know if you know what show I'm talking about? I'd really appreciate that. But yes, no, introduction to the, it's just something, it's a show that went on for a good while, and they would basically go on the opposite of offense, like, well, I'd rather have, what was it, I'd rather have my crown land than have Bill Gates own it, right? So that's kind of a little bit of a, it's kind of an interesting
both are
perspective I never even thought of.
Bad. Yeah, both are bad, but I mean, we're not in a settler kind of situation where your average person could could get 20 acres from the crown as long as they develop something on it within 5 years. Unfortunately, we don't live, there's no homesteading at the moment. that seems to have been in abeyance for now. And if we were going to take the north and develop it, well, then we need all of that extra infrastructure to make it happen. Fortunately, that's also where a lot of our energy is extracted from. So it would be a shorter supply chain in that regard. But they're not thinking about that. I think they're mostly just thinking about how you develop things in the GTA and Montreal and Vancouver, and where prices are already high, where they can make even more money.
Mm-hmm.
Like Canada, in many ways, as I've said many times, it's just basically the Hudson's Bay Company decided to build a Parliament building. They don't think of it as a nation these days.
No, it's a corporation. We got Tooth Fairy Bear 13 in the comments says, the sooner we stop moaning and bitching, the sooner we can build communities and take responsibility for our well-being, growing our own food and start crushing. Start crushing. That's when things can change in my No, we've been here on this channel. See, a lot of people are just jumping on and seeing us complaining. We've been talking strategy, solutions, and all that for the last 10 years. We were warning the tsunami of inflation's coming. We were warning housing will become on the floor. We're warning food will be out of reach. We've been warning. We were putting the warnings out there, right, for years and years. And I was covering some mainstream articles too. It wasn't like I was just getting it out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And what
a lot of these things.
But what the Rumble Heroes are doing today.
15 years.
Yeah, a lot of what the Rumble Heroes are doing today, all they're doing is just sensationalizing the headlines. I was doing that 10 years ago, right? Going over, connecting dots, trying to figure out this, that. I saw a video from 2012, 2013, a video I saw, where calculate your TDS. And I'm looking at this video. Wow, I made this video. So I'm watching it, and I'm telling people, calculate your total debt service ratio. Look at your CGS. Figure out how much money you have left over for food. It's going to get really tough. And update, when you're doing a TDS calculator online, it's free. You can find a free TDS calculator online. Go ahead and calculate how much money you have left over for food. Don't forget to include your cell phone bill. Include other things that they won't ask you for, even though you're paying through the nose for. And see realistically what you have and what you own, what you have left over, or what you could buy. You know what I'm saying? So we were really, and I'm watching these videos, I'm like, wow, I was really trying to get people on board to really see the situation at hand, right? But I mean, mind you, the video didn't even get 40 views, right? So it doesn't, the word doesn't get out, right? So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the behavior of the average consumer, too, right? We live among a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still connected?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I had the spinning wheel on the screen here for a second. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't lost my Skype. You've got a lot of people in this country that, you live among them. They don't have the sense God gave a sack of hammers when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem, is we've enabled this behavior for a long time. Telling people that they're going to have to scale back on anything sounds like they're it's a one-way ticket to the third world, and that's not true. I mean, the reason we got to be where we are is because most people saved as much of their money as they could, so they could invest it, so they could pay cash for stuff and avoid debt, right? And so that they could, they could have a good life for themselves, and particularly for their children, right? We don't think that way now. A lot of people don't have children. They're not thinking about anything but today and tomorrow. They think the best thing to do is just, slide sideways into your coffin at the end of your life and say, woo, and leave nothing behind you. Well, that's not how you build a civilization and keep it powerful either. Consumption didn't build our society. It was communities and values that built our society. Mm-hmm. Consumption was a luxury, and a luxury facilitated by unlimited credit. And that's going away. So a lot of people are just going to have to face themselves very soon. It's like, okay, who am I and what am I really about? What's really important to me? When they can't medicate themselves with another trip to the Gap or to the liquor store or whatever, right? That's the thing. Like the real questions, the real tough questions are coming up.
Can we do a little time machine playback real quick here, Supreme? let's
Go
do
ahead. Yeah.
let's do a little
I'm
time
on a bit
machine,
of a
guys.
delay, so I won't see it in real time.
That's okay. No. Just a little bit discussion here. So, like someone in the comments says,
Yeah.
yes, Mike has been talking about this for years now, and I'm in Australia. So, this is what we've been warning Australia about. Australia recession on per capita basis. Australia has just recorded its second straight quarter where the economy shrank, and this is before they pulled the trigger on the pandemic. So Australia recession on per capita basis, that was from 4 years ago. Australia's economic perfect storm disasters. Chinese will buy out Australia when rate hikes hit 4 years ago. Australia is dying. Australia is woke to death. Economic, health care, taxation, money laundering. That was only 8 months ago. Let's get into something better. Australia homes fall 7% 6 years ago. This is when they were raising rates to hedge against inflation before they decided to pull the trigger on the pandemic. And wow, look at this. My opinion. If housing doesn't correct, you will see a mass exodus of young families from Sydney by 2019. Who will pay the municipal taxes when the middle class leaves? Wow, we were just talking about that, Supreme.
Yes.
Finally,
Yeah, we were.
Australia raises interest rates. Housing
this is
will now
coming.
correct. Bad debt will fall off 5 years ago, 10 months ago. So they were already raising rates. When mortgage rates go up, it's game over. Australia and UK interest only mortgages that they were doing 4 years ago. Buyers market in Australia, rates up, forcing sellers are significantly reducing the listed prices 5 years ago. So while Australia was raising or was looking at putting up rates or the overnight rate, and now Australia's housing market severely unaffordable, empty units creating artificial shortages 3 years ago. Australia banking disaster ahead by 2024. Asset sheet, bad debt, toxic assets, money laundering 5 years ago, 9 months ago. 5 years, 9 months ago, Supreme. So it was it's crazy. It's crazy. So that just did that little plug because we were talking a lot about Canada here today on the show, but I wanted to show the Australians and show them some love that we have been covering Australia here for years now, and basically tying it in through the Commonwealth with New Zealand and the UK and the blue states of America and Canada.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Inevitable changes were on the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the pandemic necessarily was intended to arrest all of that. I think that I don't think everyone was in on that. I think that was just something that got loose or was let loose, whatever happened, and then they basically decided in concert how they were going to react to it and how they were going to try to take this newfound crisis and not let it go to waste. Well, in the end, it went to waste because all they did was print a bunch of money, put us in even bigger trouble, and they didn't get the surveillance state that they were looking for. So it didn't work, and the whole thing was actually not very well run. I think they ran up against the limits of how much they could shape the narrative and how much they could coerce people to do. In my opinion, we'll see. We'll see what the next couple of years bring. Gerald Lemoyne or Chris, we the small must budget our groceries, government budgets, fine dining. Something is wrong when your housekeeper is driving a better car than you are. Yes, that's ridiculous. If I could offer some encouragement, okay, it's not the wealthy who are making your groceries expensive, other than government policy and monetary policy, of course. It's the people around you who are going into mountains of debt to eat out all the time and buy things that they can't afford. That has driven up the price of everything, including real estate. Okay, as those people around you who refuse to budget under any circumstances or don't even understand the concept, as those ones begin to fall by the wayside, a lot of things are going to become more affordable for those who actually do budget and save. That's my contention. Okay, where interest rates are right now, all of the inflation, everything we saw for the last 14 years, if it continues, if it's forced to continue, a whole bunch of stuff is going to get rolled back. Years of inflation is going to disappear rather quickly for a time period if it unrolls that way. And I don't think they have a choice, because the paradox is we're reached the point where governments have to run larger and larger deficits because of demographics. Okay, but in order to get anybody to buy their debt, they have to have these higher interest rates. Right, which is partly why we have them.
It creates the attraction and it creates stability.
The markets have something to say, right? Yeah. So you get into kind of a doom loop where they don't mind me, I'm walking around here. They get into kind of a doom loop, I think, where they can't raise taxes anymore without causing an even greater implosion. They're trying to avoid laying off all the people that are dependent on the government or cutting back benefits, right? But they have to somehow meet these higher interest charges that are coming due. Like the United States alone has got something like $10 trillion worth of its debt that it has to roll over in the next 18 months.
Yeah.
At these higher rates.
Well, they're gonna remember
right? That is catastrophic.
We were talking about kicking the can down the road, and when we talked about we were kicking the can down to the next neighborhood, and now they're gonna kick the can to outer space.
They're gonna try. Yeah, I don't think they'll succeed. The thing about BRICS is I started talking about this on Saturday. The thing about BRICS, it's not the matter if there's going to be an alternative currency come out as a rival to the US dollar or something like that. You don't need that. All you need is for these countries that would be normally expected to buy US debt, okay, having an alternative to doing that. It's not necessarily you got a new currency. You could have cross, binational currency swaps and things like that. The idea is you get to opt out of that U.S. debt system, which means that puts a limit on the rate of growth of U.S. debt at a time when their deficits are going to start going exponential.
We got a question here.
This is the United States. Just a second. This is the United States slamming into a wall at 100 miles an hour. This is probably why they're getting more frantic as time goes by. Sorry, I just wanted to finish my thought, but please.
No. Shamrock Shake is asking, this is a good question. How will the real estate, I think he means real estate, this is resilient, but real estate market correct? It's open to global markets. See, this is something that shouldn't be allowed. You said that earlier in the show, that people from another shouldn't come here and buy 33, 4, 500 homes and then just leave them empty. Remember on trends in the housing market, I think you remember this in 2016, 2017, we had a guest that called in that was working for a portfolio for some guy out of China, and basically he owns 400 properties in Canada, 400 in Australia, 300 in New Zealand, and he's never been to either one of those countries.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that kind of phenomenon I think is going away, because the thing is that they bought those properties as a place to park their money where it would get a better return than bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it has. It has. If you invested in Canadian real estate in 2012, I mean, by 2021, you were smiling, right? And there'd be every reason to think that all you'd have to do is just buy more condos, and that you would continue to get a 10, 15, 20% return on your money, right? But now that interest rates are where they are and it's stopped and it's going to start going the other way, I think you'll see a situation where you'll have those foreign owners start to dump their properties to try to get their money back out of it.
But the locals can't. The locals can't buy back into it, right? That's the problem, right?
Well, not these prices, no. But what happens when you have hundreds and potentially thousands of housing units get dumped on the market all at once? I think you'll find that they'll become a lot more affordable in a fairly short space of time. Either that, or they'll stay where they are and they'll grind sideways for the next 10 or 15 years. But no, I mean, the idea of meteoric growth is over if things stay the way they are.
Yeah,
it shouldn't have happened. But the thing is, technically it's global. But if there's no good deals and everything is actually going to start going the other way, then people will flood out just as quickly as they flooded in.
That's the mass exodus we were preaching about.
Yes, absolutely, it will happen. I mean, think of the mass exodus for the last little while has been people who were capable, right? People who actually had ambition and wanted to do things here. You got at least two gentlemen here in the chat that are in Asia are heading there because they just flat out, they're older guys, and they frankly their money goes further and they get treated better.
Mm-hmm.
Their money gets treated better. You get a better experience for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Are foreign investors hiding money by buying real estate in Canada? I think so. Yeah, I think it's a lot of numbered companies that own property.
They in Washington State.
Businesses, I don't think it's private individuals that are buying it.
What happened was in Washington State.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
In Washington State, this was in trends in the housing market around 2017. We covered this. This is very important, okay, guys? Pay very close attention to what I'm going to say here. In Washington State, they were cracking down on foreign ownership that was coming in from China and parking money. The reason why they were coming into Washington State was because months prior, in, let's say, mid-2016, they passed the foreign buyer's tax on foreign investors in Vancouver. Because the Vancouver model fell apart, and there was just, everyone was just leaving Vancouver in droves because they couldn't compete with money laundering. So what happened was, in Washington State, they put in we need to know where your money's coming from. You need to disclose it. It's not like Canada. So what they did was they actually started to create numbered companies. And there's entire towers in Seattle, in King County, in Seattle, where you could go and it's entirely owned by a corporation out of China, but no one lives in it. It's completely abandoned. And there's a lot of those. So what they did was, instead of going with their names or private ownership, they started going through a corporate system, and it ties back to ownership in China. And Washington State was trying to tame the housing market, because in 2017, 18, 19, that place went on fire, Supreme, because of the foreign buyers tax that was put into Vancouver. And we even covered the headline is Chinese and investors are heading to Seattle in a frantic pace. Remember that headline? Investors heading to Seattle in a frantic pace as BC implements foreign buyers tax. And then Toronto also, we said Toronto was going to get hit by this too. And that was the tsunami that was heading east in 2016. And man, Toronto got hit hard too with this foreign money. And Seattle and all the way down to Oregon, right down to California, was completely decimated by people parking their money here in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And governments tend to be reactive to those things, right? Like when your real estate is going up in your city, it must be because it's such a great place to live, right? But even if you can't make that case, you've got this steady growth in property tax revenue for City Hall, so they can use it to make more diversity programs, or maybe at least finally fix the parks and the walking bridges and things like that.
Outreach centers.
Pay for development. Cities have to finance themselves like every other. Outreach centers. Thank you. Yeah, things like that. There's a lot of, but you reach a point in time where even though you've got these towers that are sitting empty and the value of them keeps going up because of 0% interest rates. I mean, let's face it, we've had monetary formaldehyde being injected into our system since it all died in 2008. The whole thing is Weekend at Bernie's. Mm-hmm. Eventually you reach a point where the values of those go up, but the more the values go up, the more people have to leave because they simply can't afford to live there, right? You're creating an artificial restriction on demand.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. That's such a good way to put it. Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
I see it anyway. It's like, well, we got all these. How could we have a demand? How could we have a supply issue with all this empty housing? Right? Why are people leaving? Well, because we get a supply issue. It's unaffordable. Supply and demand. Well, supply and demand curves don't intersect anywhere in a situation like that.
Okay.
Right? You've got all this empty housing sitting there, but no one's living in it, and everything else available is getting driven up in price. Yeah, I mean, it creates an artificial wealth effect.
Okay. Speaking of wealth effect,
out of this empty housing.
Let me jump in here real quick with wealth effect, and this is kind of important. And this is what happened with the wealth effect that Supreme Cannon is explaining to us here. Here it is on our way back playback time machine here on the channel. Vancouver mass exodus, young families leaving. Now listen to this. A net total of 9,345 whites and 460 Indigenous people left Metro Vancouver for other parts of the province in 1 year. And that was back in 2016. I left Vancouver because Vancouver left me. Mass exodus, young people leaving the city 6 years ago. I left Vancouver, pros and cons. Housing unaffordable in BC, can't find first-time home buyers. Mass exodus of youth 7 years, 11 months ago. Housing crisis, mass exodus, morning coffee with Mike. Massive brain drain. So in line with the mass exodus, we see a brain drain happening, right? And Vancouver approves 7% property tax hike, destroying middle-class families. Mass exodus ahead. That was 3 years ago. Mass exodus, young families leaving. Brain drain 6 years ago. Proof Canada's population is now 40 million. Blue state invasion. Six-figure salary is considered low income. Mass exodus ahead. So we were reporting almost 5 years ago in some of these blue states that a six-figure annual salary wasn't enough to live in those cities already, right? So, wow, we just go on to mass exodus here. We go on. Vancouver, crazy rental prices will lead to the death of the big city. Empty units and food prices 7 years ago. So this is something that we were kind of not prophesizing, but prophesizing in turn with headlines and what we were kind of seeing across the Commonwealth. Go ahead, Supreme. I'm talking too much.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. This is crazy. There was something here, Chris. Empty houses should get bought and sold for black book value, and too bad for the owner who clearly doesn't care. 2 years empty, say goodbye. I agree with that. I actually do agree with that. You know, if you're going to buy residential housing in a community, you know, there should be conditions for you being there. Using it as a place to park extra money and not making it available for someone to at least rent from you is nonsense. That shouldn't be allowed. Like, there's no such thing as community standards. You're treating your own citizens as these interchangeable economic units. Yeah, I mean, of course there's a brain drain. People, it makes no sense.
Okay, it makes no sense.
You can't do that.
Okay, here it is. Let's keep going real quick here. Videos about this stuff, Supreme.
This has been going on for a long time, bud.
25,000 vacant homes in Vancouver, causing artificial shortages and homeowners wealthy on paper. 6 years, 9 months ago. Wow. Anyways, I feel good at,
going on for a while. Yeah.
Dude, I sleep so, but the thing is, it's like these articles are recycling. You have all these Rumble heroes, Twitter stars, influencers, all these new people that are post-COVID that are telling you, look at my price of groceries. Look at that. We've been making videos about this for the last 10, 15 years now. And it's not even, none of it renaissance. Like, I guess I was too ahead. Some people were saying, Mike, you were just too ahead of the curve, or you were talking about things that people like. And I think you brought this up, Supreme. You're just talking about things that people didn't care about at the time because they were living lush and flush and living off using their homes as ATMs and not really caring about what the after effects would be. I think you told me this.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You know what? I'm sure you brought it up too. Housing as an ATM has been a theme for quite a while, probably going back even to the mid 2000s before the big hiccup, right? That was definitely happening. But as long as people were driving around in brand new Suburbans and taking their 6-month-old kid to Disneyland and stupid stuff like that, who cared? Everyone was making money, right? You've seen those clips from The Big Short where they go visit some mortgage brokers and they don't do any kind of income check on anybody. Who cares? It's just a racket. Everyone's congratulating themselves and making big money and driving new Porsches, and everything's great, man. It's just going to go on a new plateau of prosperity, they used to say before 1929. They're just retards. We're surrounded by retards. Greedy, amoral retards who don't think about their own future. They certainly don't think about their children's future. They don't think about the effect that they're having in their own neighborhoods. They don't care because I'm getting mine, right? But what happens? It all blows up. It all blows up, and anybody who's remotely sensible has to ride that tidal wave with them when they take everything down. Like, we can get mad at politicians and bankers all day long for the things they do, but at the end of the day, it's Joe and Jane Average who crash it all.
That's right.
When they go off on these tangents, memory possessed retards. You know what? I'm inclined to think you're not completely wrong, memory man. There is something that takes them over. I was a realtor. I've related this story before. For 18 months, right? Early 2017 till the middle of 2007, 2008. I was between careers and thought, well, okay, it seems to be really busy. I'll give it a shot. There was a lot of things I didn't understand at that time. But by the end of that, by that summer, I was looking for a job up north because I could plainly see from the dollar signs that everybody had in their eyes, people that I had known for years, people I went to church with, had lost their minds. This was affecting them so deeply. They had lost their minds. All they saw was those dollar signs. We're all going to be rich. It's like, I need to get out of here. I need to get away from this industry, and I need to find something else to do. And you know what? What have we seen since, say, 2010? We've seen the same thing. Everybody and their dog's fleas is either knows a realtor or a mortgage broker or is one. right? Like we're right back to it. And now it's grinding to a halt again. You know, you watch Soretsky or, you know, your show, you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, better dwelling, stuff like that. You see this happening all over Canada again. Nothing was learned. Nothing. But in the end, Canada, you know, we've deindustrialized. We're overtaxed. We're overregulated. And how's anybody supposed to get ahead? How are they supposed to make any money if they're not involved in real estate somehow? When they're, you know, flipping crypto shit coins. You know, like what else are you supposed to do? Like we reached a point in time where we got something remotely resembling the normal cost of money for most of human history. Could actually be a little higher in my estimation, but you know, and everyone is up to their ass in debt from this orgy of consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And now the bill's coming due for it all. And this time they don't get to kick the can down the road. They're trying to start wars and they're not working out. Yeah, tried to start a pandemic. Well, they just wound up printing more money and getting us even deeper into the hole. Guys, brace for impact. Thelma and Louise went over the cliff a long time ago. We're just waiting for the hit now. It's just not good.
No, it's not. Like you said earlier in the conversation,
you know what I mean.
No, it's like you said earlier in the conversation. It's like the car's going to hit at 100 miles per hour into a wall, and that's basically what's. And it's going to be a big. It's going to be really a huge fallout, though.
Sure. Okay. Greg had a question here. Do these people who bought 4, 5, 6 houses, screwed a generation, expect mercy when they showed us none? Thoughts on this? I guess it comes down to who do you blame?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people wonder, like, why don't we get off our couch and go change things? Well, who do you shoot first? In the end, everyone is responsible. Everyone who took part in this is responsible. That includes your neighbors down the street. But they were just dumb. They didn't know. You know, and the people at the top, well, they were just making bank or getting rake-offs or being paid to look the other way, which is all they've ever done. Sometimes you just got to throw up your hands, Greg, I think, and just try to ride it out as best you can.
Mm-hmm.
Look for a better world. You know, it's, the banks borrowed the money. That's true, Gerald. Yeah, and the people, they didn't know. And why didn't they know? Because nobody taught them. I mean, the powers that be, it's not in their interest for the average person to be good with money.
Let me add
They would
to
like
that.
them to at least be not too bad with it so they can make their interest payments. But that's not most people now.
Let me add to that, Supreme.
Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to add real quick that a lot of the people now that are in this, a lot of people now that are in their, let's say, late 20s, 30s, and 40s, and maybe even 50s, did not live through a catastrophic economic, haven't seen one. So they don't know what it's like, right? So this is going to be a very, very interesting time
their
ahead.
Parents definitely would, but they would.
But
it will be, yeah. But what I'm hoping will come out of it is you will see people. You know, it's going to be in some ways like this IMAX theater kind of illusion that has been broadcast that most of us have been living under in our lives is going to come collapsing down. It's like if any of you over the age of 40 ever saw Logan's Run, you know, with a big dome that everyone had been living under, all of a sudden it shattered and they found themselves living outside in the real world.
Mm.
You know, I mean, people don't live in reality because reality has been hidden from them. And a lot of people here, you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And when that comes crashing down and the harsh daylight of reality comes to them, they're going to be they're going to be looking for answers.
Yeah.
They're going to be angry, but a lot of them are going to be frightened. But what are they going to do for the most part if the answers don't come? They're going to go home. You know, they're going to go find a community. They're going to help each other. In my opinion, you're going to see, you know, things aren't going to go back to like 1970, but I think you're going to see an attitude similar to it. It's not like we're suddenly all going to be plunged into, you know, living in a Brazilian favela. It's not quite going to be like that, I don't think.
All right, Supreme, real
favela,
quick.
Yeah, it's just there's not going to be a lot of money, but the government's going to have to fix that, right?
Favela.
Don't fall for the end of the world shit, Gerald. You know what? No, it's not about the apocalypse. It's not. It's not about the apocalypse. This happened before. You know, it's just things change, right? The paradigm changes, like 1929, right?
All
Things
right.
got real. Things got real ugly after 1929, but people got tired of that too,
Yep.
and then things got better. So I think it's just the end of a cycle.
All right, let's talk community here real quick, if that's okay, guys. If you want to support this community
Okay.
here, or find anything of if you find anything of worth with this transmissions that we've been doing for years, you could support us by picking up some glutathione. If you haven't picked it up from us, go ahead and pick it up. There's a link in the description that goes to our little Mike in the Night thing if you want to support us and pick up your glutathione. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you could go ahead and buy me a coffee if you'd like. I'll leave a link in the live chat, and there's also a link in the description if you want to throw over $3 for a coffee. I would really appreciate that, and it goes towards actually buying coffee. Unfortunately, the transmission is not fun. It doesn't make enough to fund itself, so it's been very out of pocket expense for me for the last pretty much since the beginning. It's been always out of pocket. I have never man, if I was to pay myself, if I had to break it down into a wage supreme, I think I would be paying myself like 18 cents an hour all these years. But it's okay. It creates character. It makes me think outside the box on how to be more attractive, or let the platforms know that I'm here and I've been here for years. You know, if they want to just let it be equally across the board and let everyone kind of fight for themselves and see who gets the viewership and who people like. But when no one knows that you exist, it's really, really, really hard. Guys, another plug real quick here is over on Rumble. We had to take 531 down. 531 is just not working, so I removed it from the playlist. So if you guys want to piss off Rumble or whatnot, if you guys really want to piss them off, go over and subscribe to me on Rumble, if you don't mind, just to piss them off. There's the channel right there, if you don't mind going there, because we do get traction for Mike in the Night there. Also, guys, so 531's down. Let's try playing it live here. Let's go here. So we created this playlist here with the Mike in the Night episodes. They're all here for you guys. I've been working all weekend on this. So we got 535, 534, 533. We're visiting 531, 532, 530, 529, going all the way back. We almost got up to episode 400 here, Supreme. We almost got up to episode 400 for Mike in the Night. And I'm kind of, the episode's not working. Let me just refresh and see if it's working. Oh, it looks like episode... The new one, 535, is not even working. Hold on, it froze out. No, it's 535. There's Eduardo. We got Eduardo on the show there on 535. If you guys want to check out that, it's good to go. You were on that one, weren't you, Supreme?
535.
Yep, last episode you were on there.
Like last Saturday.
Yep, this past Saturday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, we wrapped it up. Yeah,
I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, that was fun. It's always enjoyable. I always like to share my opinions. I'm like everybody else, Mike. I have opinions, and I think they're all correct, just like everyone else. So I always appreciate the opportunity to come and rant with you, pal.
You were put on this earth for a reason. You're lucky to have found your calling, and we are so, I guess, hearts. Mike, I'm worried about you. What's happening in the backdrop? Did your basement cave in? Oh, guys, this is a green screen. Everybody, come on. This is a green screen. This is average Mike's, your average basement with your average talk with average garbage around me.
Yeah, it's just a green screen.
Are you ready, guys?
That's right, yeah.
Let's skip over to Mike in the Night. There's your Mike in the Night right there.
Mike's
there's
broadcasting from his Greek villa right now.
Yeah, there's Mike in the Night. That's from the episode 535. There's the there's that. There's your average Mike there. I'm just trying to see what else we have here. Average Mike talk show. Then we have morning coffee here. Here I am in the coffee house. There's morning coffee with Mike. And we keep getting this average. Yeah. Oh, it's because it's the background. So there's average Mike's there, right there. So everyone is really messaging me, and they're worried about like my living situation. And I'm like, oh, this is just an average basement, nowadays. So. Did we lose?
Yeah. No, you're good.
We got Ethan Thompson. Hello. Ethan Thompson in Los Angeles that just emailed me saying, hey, Mike, I'm watching you live. Just letting you know I'm watching you on D-Live. And then we got Sophia Davis, who's messaging me in Miami. That says, I prefer Average Mike's over Mike in the Nights. Just my opinion. So.
Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, they're all green screens, folks. Mike is actually broadcasting from his Greek villa this week. It's real nice. You should see it sometime.
European really expansion at work.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, yeah, I got to go to old Europe for that anymore. Well, I mean, in the end, I mean, we've already gone through a collapse. What we're trying to do, as I see it, is we're trying to rebuild something functional in the ruins. You know, I mean, the lights are on. You could still buy gasoline and Jell-O and darts, but I mean, something is gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're trying to preserve it, keep that fire alive, and rebuild something in the ruins.
Mm-hmm. Chris is saying,
try to save what's good and discard what's bad and go with that, because there's no future in what we have. It will be over sooner or later and turn into something else.
So we got Chris saying, I've demoed a basement and it looked like that, and he's laughing. Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, that's always fun. Hard to find an unvaxxed companion out there anywhere. Most are vaxxed. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm not jabbed, and I have no idea who around me.
But careful with that. I don't want to get shut down. I don't want to get.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, okay.
I don't want to get shut.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now. Yeah.
I don't want to get shut down.
I didn't participate in the cough medicine, shall we say?
Yeah. I don't want to get shut down. I worked too hard to build this platform, and then multiple suspensions later. I'm still here after 19 suspensions, believe it or not. Right?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, we could talk this way on Rumble, but you've got YouTube going here too, and yeah, that's in the end, that's still your biggest reservoir of subscribers.
No, Facebook is
where people find you the most.
Yeah, find me the most. Yeah.
Facebook. Okay. Well, Facebook is all right.
Well, Facebook is only 8 people watching. Mind you, I have 121,000 followers on that one, and then my Mike in the Night Facebook page has 91,000 followers on it. But unfortunately, no one gets the message. Unfortunately, so.
That's astonishing. Yeah, it's ruination in the in the promise of the internet too. The internet, was like the wild frontier back in the dial-up days. It really seemed like it would be limitless, and they're just trying to turn it into the same cookie-cutter nonsense as everything else they're trying to do. But the reason they have to subsidize a lot of media now is because no one's watching that crap anymore. That's good news. Well, stop the Charlie 19er. Yes, sir.
Whoa, Charlie 19 here. All right, Supreme, we've been talking for 2 hours, and I got to hit the bathroom. I've been drinking a lot of coffee here.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And, we've been talking for almost 2 hours here, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody on here on a, it's Monday afternoon where we are, of course. It's obviously different where a lot of you are. I hope you're all going to have a great week and be encouraged. Obviously, there are a lot of people out here in the interwebs looking for answers and finding each other, and I think we'll pull it off, guys. I don't think they're going to win.
No,
it's tedious to watch them do all this futility, but the best we can do is not be collateral damage. So just constantly be looking out for yourselves and your loved ones.
Is that your final thought, Jerry?
A little jealous.
I was watching. I was watching what you call it. I was watching Cable Guy with the Canadian actor. They're both Canadian actors, I think, in it. Jim Carrey, and he's going and says he goes to the guy, looks over to the guy and says, and that was Jerry's final thought on the Jerry Springer Show, and that was kind of funny how he brought that up, So. Supreme Cannon and his final thoughts. We should have Supreme Cannon just to dial in at the end of every single show with the final thought. Because he's usually tuned into the show anyway. So he could come in at the end, even if he's a guest, let's say through the middle of the show, and they come back and say, let's get Supreme Cannon's final thought. And that would be pretty cool. But anyways.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy to. If I'm not driving people away, well, I'm if anything I've said has helped anyone, that's great. Or at least giving you a different perspective. Like, it is rough out there. You're not imagining it. It is crazy. The world's always been a little bit nuts, but at least, your communities used to have some kind of structure to fall back on. They're really trying to break that down, but there's second order effects of that I don't think that they really took into account. So, yeah, no, natural law will prevail, guys. Biology will prevail. You will prevail. Just be tough, be brave, and we'll think tank it together.
We always did. We've been thinking tanking it together for the last 10. Well, it started on trends in the housing market when we were talking about the economic takeover and this phenomena happening across the Commonwealth, right? And
yes,
and it wasn't by chance that we kind of stumbled upon each other and contributed with each other, So
yeah, reality will prevail. So always be on the side of reality. It's a little tough right now, but it's always be on the side of reality, and you will prevail. I do believe that. I've never seen it not work anyway. So, thank you everyone for your questions, and it's been fun to interact. And thank you for the opportunity, Mike.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Talk soon, pal.
Yeah. That is Supremo Canyon here, and he's made so many appearances on the channel for all these years, kind of talking sense. And I think the whole trying to wake people up thing is already passed. That passed in 2021. I think if anyone hasn't woken up by late 2020, early 2021, just won't. And that's just what it is, right? And our Rumble's still going. Love the construction background, says Aniki. Hey, Aniki from Australia. She's another one of our callers on Mike in the Night. She's been on a lot of episodes. I'm going to start kind of going through the episodes, cleaning them up, and not cleaning them up by editing them. No. I just, a new thimble, a new write-up on what we're talking about, so people will be attracted to the episode of Mike in the Night. I'll give you guys the link. There's a link here to all the episodes, and I'm trying to get them all to work nicely and without any problems. And this is what it looks like, folks. There's Eduardo on 535. So here is the link. I'll show you what it looks like. I worked so hard, guys, to get this. I'm going to even put this link on Rumble, too, so you guys can go to the playlist. I worked so hard this last couple of days to get this going. And if you guys don't mind checking it out, all the episodes here. And, oh, there it goes. It's working. And on Facebook here. So if you guys... I'm going to leave a link in the Facebook too, because there's like 8 people watching. So if I put that there you go. So what we did is, if you really, I'm going to warn you guys right now, you got to be kind of over 2021 to go back to, let's say, in the 400s here. I would recommend going back if you want to watch 482, if you want to watch these episodes here. I would strongly recommend 21 and older to go into some of these earlier Mike of the Nights, and the playlist is up on Rumble. So fingers crossed we don't get taken down. 478. Well, Supreme Cannon over here co-hosting. And WEF doubles down. That's 478. And we keep going back here to these episodes. 473. I can't even read some of these headlines here. It would probably get me suspended or terminated or banned. And yeah, if you go back, I a lot of work putting this together, guys. A lot of hours. Lots of time invested into this. So yeah, if you want to go back to 445, I really don't recommend it to watch any of these really earlier Mike in the Nights with any children at all. It's really vulgar. A lot of the callers are vulgar. A lot of hate. A lot of emotions. A lot of, there it is. Look at this. Mike in the Night 428. Runaway inflation. Finding solutions for this mess. Call in. No confidence in current administrations. It just goes on and on and on and on. And then we got 387 up here. So I'm going to work the next week or two to get this playlist sorted for you guys, and I'm going to be uploading through the week episodes of Mike in the Night to this, so you guys could catch up on and maybe any episodes you have missed. But for some reason, we can't get 531 up. I don't know why. 531 just won't work. It's the same frame, same this, same broadcast, same. And if I recall correctly, we couldn't even stream on Rumble for 531. We had to go to D Live to stream. And we couldn't on Odyssey either because it's not there either. So it's kind of playing games with the platforms. And my biggest scariness nightmare is them taking me down and all this work goes to nothing. So playlist for Rumble is up for Mike in the Night. People keep emailing me and asking me for past episodes. So there they are there, folks, if you guys want to check them out. Yeah. Wow, everyone is so civilized on your show now, Mike. Silent Walk, like-minded, says, thanks, Mike, says Mukluk. Mr. Nobody in the House over in New Zealand. I think he was on the last Mike in the Night, too. We got Gold Dust, Sharon in the house. I will not comply. That's correct. Natalie Hilton, you guys make a great team, Mike. Well, we're good friends, right? So it's a little bit different when you're with a friend kind of talking and kind of almost like sitting back and cracking open a bottle of whiskey and just talking like human beings. And good times, Miguel. Thanks again. No problem, Supreme Cannon. Just messaging me. Anyways, I'm gonna head to the bathroom. I'm gonna head to other things here in the house I gotta get done. And thanks for supporting the transmission and being part of the show and the whole 9 yards. It really means a lot to me. And yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for being here.